My name is Joshua Aaron Michael Welton. My parents made sure I had all them names in there. And I've been married for going on 12 years now. I have four beautiful children, Azaria, Sovereign, Genesis, Icon, girl, boy, girl, boy. I've been married with my wife, Hannah, like I just mentioned, for about 12 years. And I'm just happily married. I'm a blessed man. God is good. I'm also a pastor. And I just enjoy music. I've been doing music my whole life. And I'm also a tech founder, and that's things that are going to be coming out, slowly but surely this year. And so we're just excited about life, excited about, doing whatever we can to help society in a powerful way. Back in 2012, a year after my wife and I got married, Prince discovered my wife on YouTube, and we just came as a package deal. I was literally in the country Inn and suites praying, and I was like, Lord, if he tries to separate us. I was a newlywed, and my wife and I were really excited about being married. We had already gone through a lot of personal things leading up to Prince discovering her, and I was just like, you know what? If he tries to separate us, that's my cue. That means that, we're not supposed to be here. And literally, we're sitting in the media room. I don't know what it's called now, but we were in the media room, and Prince was there, Andy Allo, myself, and Hannah. And one of the first things he said, so as you can see, we have a lot of room here. And we were like, yeah, man, it's amazing. This is awesome. And he said, so I can't separate you two. That's what he said. And I said, oh my gosh, like that was my biggest concern. You know what I mean? When you got Prince, right? And she has a dream to drum. I didn't want to come between that. And I'm just like, okay. He said, I can't separate you two. He said, you guys are here, and the door's open and welcome anytime you want to come by. I was just like, oh my gosh. So that's how it all started. I grew up around music. I grew up in a household where the culture was like, if you don't dance, you get a whooping. You know what I mean? It's like, you better get up. You know what I'm talking about? You better get up and dance. You better get up and sing. And if you don't, everybody mad. You don't get a whooping, but you get what I'm saying. You just like, come on, man, you over here tripping. So we had to always be engaged. Even if you couldn't dance, you better get up and dance for grandma, for your dad, for your mom. So I grew up around music. I have a history in music in my bloodline. Count Basie is my uncle. Dinah Washington was married in through, we're related through marriage, but just being around it and having that come up. Even my grandfather was popular in Canada doing music. And so for me, it was just within the blood. As far as when the moment came, my dad has been a strong advocate, and just my upbringing and come up in music. I just wanted to be around it. I was always attracted to music, and growing up in church, I was attracted to praise and worship. I was attracted to how the atmosphere would change. I was attracted to the influence of music. And so it was an evolution where it was almost like it was an inevitable thing that I don't think I had like a moment where it was like, this is it. I think when you perform, you feel that. But I think, when I just started doing music, it just felt like this is what I'm supposed to do the more I did it. For me, I think it was, well, I was actually told by multiple different producers, but particularly one that I was excited to meet because of the work that they did. Historical, and I'm just not going to mention the person, but he told me, he's like, man, you got to be vulgar. And I was writing about things that, meant things to my heart, and I was producing things that was near and dear to my heart, but there was a common trend of what I think that people were anticipating a light-skinned brother to do, because they saw it work for so many years. And so I think it was the fight for authenticity. It was the fight for, I don't want to do what everybody else thinks I should be doing because of what I look like. I don't want to fall into that category. I don't want to do the things that I just didn't even feel the right conviction to do. I had this whole image where I put a lock as an artist. I put a lock on my belt loop, and it was about locking it up, and only my wife would get the combination. And so it was a sexy way to be pure, you know what I'm saying? Like, who wants the combination? But for me, it was literally about virginity. I was not going to do anything until I got married. And that wasn't flying with a lot of different people. There were some people who did believe in it. And praise God, I, of course, found some ways through it. But at the same time, I think it was just people trying to force me into what they suspected that I should do because of, you know, and I understand it because of what's worked for a lot of light-skinned brothers, you know, coming out. And everybody talks about the light-skinned face and the vibe and the shirt off and all that kind of stuff. It just wasn't me, you know what I mean? And so I think that was one of the bigger challenges that I had to face. And I think, you know, a lot of different artists fight that as well, you know, that idea of just not trying to be, or somebody trying to force you into something you're not, you know what I mean? Well, you know, it's interesting because, you know, this question is like, I'm looking at young Joshua who all he had was his environment around him. And that's what he wanted to capitalize on, or he wanted to stand out in. And when you have people that are popular in that area, you're like, well, even though they do music that don't sound like something I want to do, I still want to do something similar to it because that's what everybody likes. And so it was this idea of trying to find my own identity. I think that Chicago really helped me do that because it was understanding, okay, I like this sound, I don't like this sound, but I see everybody likes this sound, so I want to incorporate this in my sound. So it was just this organic unfolding of saying, okay, I really enjoy this about this. And also there was a strong phase of my life where I didn't produce music and I was just getting beats from producers. And I got so picky. I didn't know I was going to end up producing myself. And so it was like, I was so picky about what people would send me. I'm like, man, don't you want to put a drop right here? Don't you want to put a bridge like right? And I was so specific. Some people were like, bro, I'm getting turned off by all these comments you got. But it was one of those things where it was, I like this, I don't like this. And being around such a Midwest powerful sound, you got some really great things to pull from and be inspired by. And so I think that's pretty much a part of my story. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a place where some powerful music has come from and has influenced the world. And so I think for me, it was just an opportunity to hear what I like, what I didn't like, and then create my own sound from that inspiration. First of all, just an honor. I remember when he told me, he was like, you know, nobody's ever shared that with me, you know, and just that idea of sharing that with him as a single producer, right? I see it as an honor. I see it as that's my brother. It's because, you know, I saw him, of course, as Prince, the musician, and that never got old. But just like for him to do that, even as my brother, someone I loved, is it was like, man, I appreciate you even recognize, because you didn't have to, you know what I'm saying? You didn't have to do it that way, you know, because of course he's worked with other producers. He's what he did say is the capacity in which I worked with him was different from anything he experienced before as well. But I think the biggest thing for me is I see it as an honor, but I also see it as a responsibility to maintain the essence of what that actually means. It is that idea of ownership, written, arranged, produced, performed, and continuing that legacy of ownership of your masters, ownership of your music, ownership of your creativity, ownership of your sound, and to continue on with that. And then also share the jewels so that people, when you're put in a seat like that, right, you have an opportunity to either hold all the jewels or share it. And I think that I'm all about sharing because that's what he was about. And so like I said, I see it as an honor. I see it as a responsibility to continue that legacy of ownership and creativity. I think one of the greatest influences one can have is how one thinks on somehow a person thinks. So I think the fact that people approach music differently and even the music business differently and how they think about ownership, how they think about their masters, how they thought about, you know, how they're going to approach their musicianship on this track, how they're going to sing on this track, how they're going to write this song. It's like being a powerful, powerful influence of music where it's a part of the DNA of music. So I think, you know, few different stories when you meet people that are highly revered, and they're going like this to Prince. You know what I mean? There was one story where we went to SNL 40 and just we walked down the pathway of every top list A list actor and musician ever, and they're like moving out of the way so Prince can walk through. I think that right there, it's the influence on how they approach the music business with ownership and how they approach music. And so the question is, how do I think he's influenced? I believe he has influenced the way that people think and approach music and the business itself, which is hefty. I don't know how else to say it. As a musician, you approach music differently. As a music business owner as well, I approach the business differently, just based on some of the things that he said. So it's twofold for me. I used to call it, and I still do. If somebody asked me, did I go to college? I say, yeah, Paisley University, because it was like that. It was a school for me. And I'm still learning from the things that I was taught there. And then also, I think based on just the things that I would do, I got an opportunity to appreciate him differently. When I would get stems and I would get his a cappella versions of his songs, or when I would get him recording on top of one of my tracks or something like that, how he rode the beat, his pocket, his timing, his approach, the breath that he chose to take, the lyric that he chose to hold out, and what he even said, and then how it tied together lyrically. I was able to intimately look into those details as someone who mixed this stuff. And it was such an amazing, it was a privilege to be able to not just witness, but be a part of history. He couldn't just do stuff and it not be historical. He was just like that. If he performed at a certain place, it will forever be remembered as a place Prince performed at. If he got caught eating a certain drink or drinking a certain drink, it's like, yo, get the Prince drink now, So it was very hard for him to just do regular things. And I appreciated that. And you have to revere that, because when you represent something like that, you have to be aware with how you represent yourself publicly as well. And so I think for me, it was such an honor to just be a part of history and then watch how effortlessly he carried the mantle. Because I look into leadership cues like that. I look into people who are able to be humble in the midst of it all, to give, like you said, anonymously. And I think that's probably why, just my roots in the church and my focus on Jesus, I look for qualities like that, because I admire qualities like that. And I learned so much from him, not just as a musician, but also as a person. So it's just for me to be at Paisley Park, to be a person who was born in Chicago, raised in Aurora, who had no reason or connection to have outside of God, to be in Paisley Park working with him as intimately as I did. I see it as such a privilege, an honor, and I'm still grateful to this day of the things that he's taught me and what I still apply. Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. We laughed a lot, and it got to the point where Studio B, where I worked at predominantly, there were no windows, so I couldn't tell if it was day or night. And so it was like nonstop sometimes. And you got to the point where you could walk through Paisley when it's completely dark, which was really nice. You know what I mean? To be able to walk through there. I don't know if I can do it now. There's a lot, there's different things happening, but it's a good thing. I just think that as I would, just, it felt like home. It was a home away from home. And it still feels that way when I go there. It looks different, but it's a good different. I think it's a part of his heart desire and what he wanted, just for the commemoration. I think it's an honor and it's a blessing to see that continuation of his legacy as well, represented at Paisley Park. Well, the good thing about the Purple movement is that it was, I believe, a strong catalyst to even what we're doing now. We haven't done too many things in front of the scenes, but we have actually been working very heavily behind the scenes. And I did preview a little bit of what we're working on now. It's a company called Verpal, Voice Your Purple Opinion. We're building a civic engagement platform that was, of course, inspired by the Purple movement. And I think that the need for unity through technology in a way that we couldn't do through the pandemic was a strong catalyst to what we're building today. But also just a bridge of effective communication, because I believe that one of the fundamental pillars of a powerful relationship is communication. And if you're not communicating well, even if you're in war, if your communications are cut off, it's a detriment to the success of that mission. So I believe that generally speaking, whether you're speaking in marriage, you're speaking of a son to a daughter, or a father to a son, or a father to a daughter, you need that communication. And I believe that if you find out ways through technology that there's accountability, transparency, effective communication, that's where Verbal comes in. And that's what I believe the Purple movement was a strong catalyst to, because I had the idea of what we're doing now before the Purple movement. But what happened was it was like this, once again, an organic unfold when I went down to ground zero where George Floyd and the tragedy happened there, right? I was able to not just be around people who are connected to the actual situation, but feel the spirit of the street itself. And it was on Chicago Avenue. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was like where the city I was born in, 38th in Chicago is where it's at downtown in Minneapolis. And I'm seeing the city, I'm feeling it out. The Prince connection, it was like this thing where I said, we have to figure out a way to bring unity. And I went down there and I just preached. It was a part of just my DNA. It's who I am. But I realized, of course, not everybody believes in what I believe in, but most of everybody had a smartphone down there, either recording me or doing something on their phone. And so there's a way that I believe that Verbal can really bridge that gap that the Purple movement even started. Every intent that you have to move forward can have some type of hurdle, whether you're in a social justice movement or you're trying to, build a garden outside of your house. I think that there's various trials that you have to go through. One of the struggles as a founder, I believe, is there's a lot of people who are well versed in talking about the matter, but when it actually comes to doing something about the matter is where you're going to find a lot fewer people who are going down that road. And so I think for me, finding actual, genuine, authentic people, like we just said before, in music, it's hard to find that, right? But when you find genuine, authentic people who are really trying to make a change, that are not trying to just simply capitalize on marketing or try to figure out a way to capitalize financially, like real people who really care, who actually are business savvy, who are doing something, that's just like, where is that? And so I think the challenge is finding those kind of people to remain consistent, because you do get people who are inspired by the times and who will talk about it when something hits the news. But who are the people who have a lifestyle of giving back, who are business savvy and authentic? That's probably, for me, with the same vision and wavelength, that's probably been more of a challenge for me. But I just want to encourage those who may experience those things. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do what you're doing. I think that a lot of times when you're a pioneer of something or a forerunner, you just get there before people. It just doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that those people won't be for you. It just means you got there before them, and you may see that vision. So I think that there was identity realization in those moments where I felt like, where can I get some authentic help? But I also believe that it was business building and character building. So a lot of good things came from it. But generally speaking, forgive me for being a little long-winded on this answer. It's been finding authentic people, but then also finding myself within it. So I think that at the end of the day, it's been a beautiful reality to grow and evolve into. We're on the verge of coming from behind the scenes this year to coming in front of the scenes. And we've raised over $500,000 for this new tech company that I believe the Lord gave me, just to really be a bridge of effective communication. And we're set to be raising even more millions of dollars later this year. And it's been a beautiful, challenging, amazing experience. One of the things that I did hear a venture capitalist say, which I believe is true, and I think that there are some powerful people. One of the people that I'm talking about is Black Star Fund with Kwame Anku, who are actually making a change in this area of the deficit, I should say, that a lot of Black founders are over mentored and underfunded. And so there's a lot of advice that comes in and a lot of mentorship, but a lot of people may not put the money behind it. Now, I'm not saying that's the case for every Black founder, but I don't believe it's monolithic, but I do believe that that is proven with women and people of color, that we have, it's like facts, right? That we just have not had the funding that other races have. And so for me, I think that with that being said, I always point things back to God, and I just believe that he can open doors that no man can close, and he can close doors that no man can open. So even though that may be the trajectory, I don't think that I have to follow along with that. That's one of the things that I learned from Prince. He told me, we were sitting in a car one day outside of Caribou in Chanhassen. He was like, we were listening to the radio in his Cadillac, and he was like, so this is what I do. He said, if everything is really booming and fast and loud on the radio, he said, I'll put out something soft and slow. He said, if everything is soft and slow and you feel that. Now, when it's a difference between having a musical gift and like embodying music, you understand the waves of what's happening in the musical culture. So he's sitting down and he said, so if something is, loud and fast, I'll put out something soft and slow. And he said the opposite. It's authentically going against the grain, not for the sake of going against the grain, but it's a part of your DNA not to do what everybody else is doing authentically. And so I would encourage people to do that, and to not, if the trajectory and the stereotype says that this is what's happening, even if the facts say that that's what's happening, there's a difference between facts and truth. That truth that's on the inside of you cannot be shaken. And I would encourage those who are either raising funds, moving forward in life, or even building something, pioneering, forerunning something, to stay the course. Don't allow the stereotypes. Be aware of them, because you have to understand what enemies you're against. But that right there is not your stopping point. Follow that truth within you. And I believe my truth is Jesus Christ. And I just, he said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. So for me, that's what I follow. But for you, if that's not necessarily someone you believe in, I just encourage you to stick with truth versus just facts. You know what I mean? And then just keep going, and you'll find real truth. Don't be afraid to be uniquely you. I think, there's a scripture that says your gift makes room for you. You're gifted, you're blessed, you're talented, you're called out, you're unique. And it doesn't mean just because you're a light-skinned brother with a chain that you got to take your shirt off and have tattoos. Okay. I'm not saying that that's what every light-skinned brother does, but when they tell you, because they've told me, I should say, from my experience, you got to do this in order to be seen. You got to be vulgar in order to be seen. You got to say this nasty stuff in order to fit. I'm not trying to bring no sand to the beach. I'd rather be a palm tree to bring shade to people than sand to the beach. I'm telling you, just be uniquely you, and go for it. Do it with quality. Do it with quality. Do not allow what everybody else is doing to lower your standard of quality and how you bring what you bring to the table. Bring quality. Literally be a recording artist. That means know the art behind recording, and don't just go out there and just do stuff hoping something lands. Outside of just social media and things being viral and trendy, I believe that when you are unique, you have a harmony, you have a wavelength, a vibration that will harmonize with people out there looking for you. And a lot of times understanding marketing will help, of course, but I really believe ultimately when you have unique content and you're uniquely you and you're not afraid and you're bold about it, that will shift everybody and turn everybody's head to your light. So keep shining, keep going. Don't bow to the stereotypes and the trajectory that everyone else draws for you. Draw your own, go against the grain, and make history.